there's some negatives that are here. He's asking these questions because he's seen all of this stuff on the internet. It was this curiosity. Yeah, there's some negatives. They hide. They hide here so that they can do the negative junk that they were doing. But what they didn't understand, they're stuck here now because you saw the barrier that's around the solar system. The negatives cannot get through that barrier, and they're stuck here, and they're just as scared as everybody else. Because in their limited consciousness, they see this as the end of their existence. They don't understand that they're just going to come back out without any negative influence. They're actually going to be considerably better off than they are right now when they get reabsorbed and realigned and come back out. Because this negative polarity thing it's a bad path. They shouldn't be on it, and it's going away. They're still here. They're hiding. It's being cleaned up. He's asking questions about, are there still bases underground where these negatives are? Yeah, sure there. Yeah. Have some been cleaned up? Yeah, some have been cleaned up. You're right. The positive polarity forces that are here to remove this scourge, as it would, infection, are overwhelming. There's nothing that's going to stop what's coming. It's coming. It's over. Polarity's over. Todd's asking about the riots in Charlottesville. Let's talk about that for a minute. You don't really care about these aliens underground. That's pretty much gone. All right, let's talk about this for a minute. It ties in. There are humans on the planet that have allied with the negative factions for power and control, and I mean all of the things that divide and separate consciousness is a negative polarity. And the humans that have aligned with the negatives, you see all of this negative separation and polarity occurring because that's what they want. They want the Earth humans to stay in lower level vibratory consciousness. They want them to be mad at each other for, the sexes. Your sex is different than my sex, and your face is different than my face, or your color is different, or you speak different. They're the same things we talked about when we talked about our discussion on love. All of these things, these divisions, anything that divides consciousness from being collective and ascending is negative. It's very easy to identify. Anything that divides you is negative. All right? And negative polarity is not very intelligent. It will find something that worked in the past, and it will use it over and over and over and over and over again. So let's talk about Charlottesville. You see these people that are walking with these flags from a failed negative vibration attempt to conquer the world, and you call them Nazis. Okay? You see these flags from a division where the United States fought against itself, and that wasn't necessarily a negative polarity battle. It was a battle of ideology. It wasn't really negative polarity. It was tragic.
It was a battle over the right to own other people.
That is a small portion of it. That was not the entire conflict. But we don't want to go into what caused the conflict. What we're trying to identify here is that these flags and that these divisions, they create divisions. Okay, this flag of this Nazi flag is an infuriating sign to the people that had to endure this and had to go through this, and that America fought to conquer this. It's very, very obvious from a standpoint of an ascended consciousness to look at this and see these two flags and to see what's occurring and to see that it's being created on purpose. This is being created on purpose. This isn't just organic. This is orchestrated. These people that are there, some of them came on their own accord, but a lot of those people got paid to be there. And that's just the way it is. And if you don't like what we just said, you don't have to believe it, and that's fine. But we're telling you, these divisions are being orchestrated by the negatives to keep people in lower third density consciousness, in division, in fear, in hatred. It's the time for this is over. This is a last-ditch effort to get people to be divided, to divide consciousness. And it's very, very transparent. Everyone needs to understand it's transparent. Let it go. Why? The people are misguided, the ones that are walking around with the flags. If they got a little bit of money in their pocket, it's not going to help them much. And everyone's going to hate them now. And why is there hate? We don't understand what we're watching occurring here. The people that are fourth density consciousness, that are higher third density, that are ascending, should be able to see the transparency of this and move beyond it and let it go. Todd's not even paying attention to any of it, and he sees it in passing, but he's not reading any of anything that's happening. And we're telling him things that he doesn't even know because he's not paying attention to it. But we're telling you that this is an orchestrated event to keep people divided and to keep the hatred and the fear going. And we are very surprised to see how effective it has been. And what needs to happen is there needs to be more love and less hate. And the more people that can love and forgive and understand what's occurring, the quicker this will all be over. Because all this junk needs to get out of here. And it needs to be transmuted into love and peace and collective consciousness. This is where we're going. This is where this planet is going. These last-ditch efforts by the people who have an incalculable amount of money and are throwing it around to try and keep everyone in division and fear, it needs to stop. It needs to stop. Whatever has to happen to make it stop needs to happen to make it stop.
Could I ask a question in relation to this? And this has to do with positive and negative polarity and a very strong human tendency, because you're talking about how important it is to try to reach a collective and how that is the purpose of consciousness.
That's correct.
It's human nature to respond to something, I guess we would call it maybe a group mentality or a mass mentality, where when you have a group of people together, regardless of the motivation, and we've seen this negative motivation, this negative polarity aspect, influencing these protesters, some of them, but they stick together and they're very firm in their belief. How can we, people who feel or are working towards ascension and are light workers, how can we try to reach those negatively influenced people?
Mass meditations. Todd has seen the call for mass meditation, the 21st. That's tomorrow, for the solar eclipse. This is the best way to transmute fear and lower density vibrations. For all the light workers to get together in mass meditations. This is a collective consciousness effort of positive polarity to overcome the negative polarity. And the sooner that people understand the mass meditation, prayer, call it prayer. Pray for love. Pray to your God for love and peace. And everybody get together and do it all the time, because positive polarity can overwhelm negative polarity very easily. These pockets of negative polarity, when they get together, it turns into this like a piranha frenzy where it just feeds on itself. This negative polarity turns, and it looks like Todd's seeing like a swarm of angry bees in his head. And it just around and around and around, this black swarm of angry bees. And then this big positive polarity light comes of love. And the bees are no longer mad anymore. And slowly the bees stop being mad. The bees around the periphery are no longer mad and go home. And the swarm gets smaller and smaller and smaller until there's nothing left. And what you'll find at the very center is the 1 or 2 or 3 bees that are causing everything to happen. And those are the 3 bees that probably shouldn't get to go home today.
So you're saying that, where you have said that sometimes bad things happen that can help in some way assist the good, or have to happen in order for the good to be able to take control. But there's a group of people who feel like they want to counter this hate and this violence with violence of their own to try to squash it and put it out. Is that what you're referring to, or is that not the way to respond?
Hate is never the answer to hate. So, Todd's body is not cooperating today. He tickles in his throat. Hate is never the answer to hate. So, and then we have to say that sometimes extinguishing the entity so that the consciousness can leave the body is required, because there's no way to realign the consciousness unless it's reabsorbed. Todd fought an interplanetary war and destroyed an entire negative planetary sphere of a hive mind bug alien race to preserve a positive polarity planet. That was appropriate. It was necessary. There was no other way to save the positive polarity planet without destroying, completely eradicating the negative polarity presence. On this planet, there are a small number of very, very powerful people that are still pushing a negative agenda. They are still in contact with the few that remain that cannot leave this solar system, or they would have already left. And they are still pushing this negative agenda in the hopes that their vision for this horrible future that they want, that they think they want, will still occur. It is not going to occur. It's not going to happen, and yet they persist. These people create these negative division scenarios. This was a created event. This was not an organic event. This did not organically occur. This was an orchestrated event to cause a division and do exactly what it's doing. It's dividing the entire country. It's creating so much division and so much hate. And the people can't even understand the manipulation that's occurring around this. We don't understand why this is even occurring anymore. What needs to happen is the people that are orchestrating these events need to be identified.
These negative factions that are here, they didn't start out that way. They are the way they are because of the choices
they made. The choice. And this negative path that's here on this planet is horrific. The inductions that they have to endure to go through this are terrible. And why they endure these things is beyond us. We don't understand why they would do this. All these induction processes for these negative entities that are here, the Earth humans that are here, not the alien factions. These tortures and submissions and the sacrifices and the things that they go through. It's horrific, and it puts all of this negative vibration into their consciousness, and they don't even really know what they're experiencing. After a while, they start to enjoy it, and then they perpetuate it into the next generations, this negative garbage. And a positive polarity entity would turn away from this and get away in any way that they could, because they wouldn't want to experience it. But you get into the path, and you keep following it, and the negative polarity builds up in you, and the next thing you know, there's no good left in you. You don't care anything about anything except yourself and what you can gain.
In Todd's first session, he was told that President Trump had a higher self that was guiding the planet into light.
Yeah, that's true.
We aren't seeing much outward evidence of this, and would like some insight as to how and when he will begin to assume this role.
Okay, in the first session we talked about, in Todd's very, very first session, where it was a shock to him what happened, we spoke that the higher Trump was guiding, and that the ego Trump was a more baser, instinctual, effective animal. And the ego Trump is very strong, very strong. Everyone can see that. They can look at it. They make fun of it. And it's there. And we also said that the ego Trump was going to have to step aside so that the higher Trump could come through and guide in the manner prescribed. This was a decision that was made prior to his incarnation into this earth lifetime that he's in now. And the ego has had a lifetime of running the show, and the higher self has been there in the background, just kind of steering the course a little bit and letting things go. There's been some missteps, and the ego, and again, like we said, the etheric hand tries to come over and shut the ego up, and it is sometimes effective and sometimes not effective. But Trump is fulfilling his role. He's fulfilling the role that he needs to fulfill. So, when are you going to see the actions that you want to see? It's going to be a little bit while yet. But we also have to state that there are things occurring that you don't know are happening, and there's a reason you don't know they're happening, because they're happening behind the scenes, and the negative polarity is being attacked. And the reason why the Charlottesville occurred is because of the attacks that are occurring behind the scenes to the negative polarities, and they're lashing out, and they're trying to stop it, and they're doing everything that they can to try and get this presidency pulled so that someone else can take over that they might be able to control. Well, it's not going to happen, and they can't control Trump. And the things that are happening, and we have to state, you just have to trust the right things are occurring in the right places. On the surface, it looks like a train wreck. That people are moving, and people are fired, and people are this, and people are that. And it looks like one of those reality TV shows that everybody watches now. And on the surface, that's the way it appears. But in the background, the people that are really making decisions and that are really doing things are really stirring up the pot. And the negative polarities are seeing the changes that are occurring. And in about another year, there'll be so many changes that have occurred that there's no coming back for the negative factions. And they're trying everything they can to stop everything that's happening that nobody knows about before it's too late. Well, it's too late. And it's going to happen. And again, we state, perhaps some of these negative people need to turn to the light before it's too late.